Hey, sorry about the little technical difficulty we're having there, but glad you could join us. Looks like we got 30 people online here tonight, and that's great and super exciting. Looking forward to chatting with you guys about finances and the COVID virus and maybe what we should be doing, and maybe answer a few questions about what you guys are living and feeling and walking through so that we can come together as a community and help you guys. I did put together a little presentation tonight for you. I won't kill you with PowerPoints, but I have a few things that might be useful and you'll find helpful. And we also have a small video that's part of it from Joe Sangli, actually released today, about budgeting and the coronavirus and budgeting in an emergency, which is entirely different sometimes than just regular budgeting, right? So without any further ado, I'd kind of like to jump into my PowerPoint a little bit, and that'll be a good place to start. So one thing I wanted to find out from you guys as we get started here today is, why are you guys here? If you click on the poll on the right-hand section, Stu's got some selections there to go by, but I'm kind of curious if you guys are, in serious health, we'll be just fine, maybe a little worried, or wanting to thrive during this period. And if you go ahead and check in that poll and click why you're here tonight, it might give me a gauge to help with why people want to be here tonight and why they want to attend this webinar about financial workshop. Awesome. I see some responses coming in there. I like what I'm seeing. Quite a few stables. I'm a little worried, but doing okay. I'm stressed. I've got one of those in there. Awesome. Pretty easy to feel stressed in this time period, that's for sure. All right. So some things we are seeing as a community is unprecedented unemployment, probably unemployment numbers that we haven't seen in a very long time. Some argue as long as the Great Depression. I don't know if that's quite true yet, but depends on which route this takes. We are seeing some businesses doing one of two things in this world. They're either really thriving or they're struggling to stay alive. And some examples of that would be Amazon, having to slow deliveries that can only put out so much. I mean, they're thriving there this time. Grocery stores, absolutely thriving. Some restaurants that have delivery and online services all set up, they're doing really, really good. But some restaurants aren't. And some restaurants are even closing their doors. And unfortunately, we'll probably even lose some restaurants through this economic times. One other thing we're seeing, which is a positive, I think families are spending more time than ever together. And I think as distance as our families have gotten and fractured about going to 10 million events, that this is a nice kind of recharge. This has been for our family to get together, spend more time together, get a little bit more involved in each other's lives, and just be together. We are seeing a little bit of struggles though with all that togetherness, right? Families are trying to all work from home, study from home, relax at home, and maybe even all exercise in the same space. And I don't know if you guys are anything like us, like that's not an easy task to juggle sometimes. So this financial workshop's kind of two-pronged. It's built for two things. Whether you want to thrive or whether you're in crisis and you need a little help. So there's a little bit of information tailored to both in this, and should be able to pick up some gems no matter which side of the coin you're on that'll help you. One of the things that's really important about going into this time period is having a budget or a plan, like Joe likes to call it, or even Dave Ramsey, so that you can plan what you know you're going to have for outflow, and then you also can plan what you have for income. And then if there's a gap, figure out some way to meet it. That kind of gets into our crisis planning. And on this webinar, I put down low, I don't know if you can click on it there, but on Joe Sangli's website, there is a monthly budget worksheet to kind of get you guys started. And I want to play this quick video that Joe made from I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. And if you've been around a church for a little while, you've seen Joe come up and present a couple times, but he did this nice piece on crisis budget management, and I'd like you guys to see it. So I'm gonna go ahead and play on that.
We're going to talk about preparing a budget in a financial emergency. What do you do when you've had a sudden shock to your income? What do you do when you have a sudden massive bill showed up? What do you do? So we're talking about how to have a plan for a financial emergency. The number one thing you should do is face financial reality. Face your financial reality. How do you do that? Prepare a plan.
How do you do that? Prepare a plan.
A budget on your own on a piece of paper with a pencil and a calculator, or you can use one of the free templates that we provide at IWasBrokeNow.com. And with this, you can face financial reality by preparing a list of all your expected income and the expenses you have for the upcoming month. If the expected income is very low or no, put that in there. You don't want to put a hope so together. You want to put a no-so. What can you count on to receive this month? What are the expenses that you have for the upcoming month? You have to face financial reality. I know that it is not fun or comfortable to do that, but let me tell you, what you do right now in the face of a financial emergency is going to be tremendous in helping you be able to come out on the other side, and there will be another side. The second thing you have to do is, after you have put in your income and expenses, is calculate what we call the gap. And that is the difference between what your income is able to cover and what is no longer able to be covered. The difference between income and outgo. That it does not equal exactly zero, that it is a gap and there's a negative number, that you don't have enough money to cover all of those expenses. This gap is such a tremendously important number because it gives you clarity. Clarity allows you to eliminate confusion, allows you to eliminate emotion, and allows you to be able to focus on that number and be able to find ways to be able to produce enough income or cut out enough outgo to be able to bridge the gap. The third step, as you are preparing a budget in a financial emergency, after you face financial reality and put together a list of all your expected income and expenses and you've calculated the gap, is to make that gap go to exactly zero. What we say exactly zero, trademark, or we say EZ, which stands for exactly zero. Income minus outgo has to equal exactly zero. Clarify each expense and put it in a category either called wants or needs. And we prepared a video for you called 10 financial steps you can take right now that will show you ways to save money, to be able to reduce cash outflow so that you can be able to bridge the gap and force your budget to make it equal exactly zero, to make it easy. What is a true need in your life right now? What is a want in your life right now? And isn't it amazing how those change based on the new reality that you're facing? See, that's why it's so important to take that first step of facing the new financial reality. What used to be a sacred cow now is put on the altar because of the new reality. And I encourage you, make sure that you do this part because it is so vital towards your ability to thrive and move towards a fully funded life later. After you've been able to face financial reality and you've calculated the gap and then you've done all these difficult and challenging decisions to figure out how to raise income and decrease outgo and make it exactly zero, then you have to do the hardest part, and that is you have to go live it. You have to go live the plan that you have prepared. That's why it's so important to face financial reality. If you don't put together a budget that reflects reality, you won't stick with it. You won't be able to live it. You have to live according to the budget. And the number one way I've found to do that is to establish accountability. Having accountability is so important in this type of time because we know that we are not able to hold ourselves accountable to doing difficult decisions. If we have someone in our life that we know is going to check in on us, we're much more likely to do the difficult. And what I've found in my life is when I finally have made the difficult decision I've been putting off on, I've procrastinated, there's such relief. And many times I look back and say, why on earth did I not do that much sooner? And I'll tell you, friend, why? It's because I didn't establish accountability. And so if you want to really prepare a budget that allows you to win in a financial emergency, you must face your financial reality. You must calculate your gap and then get after it. Find ways to be able to fix that gap, to increase income, decrease outgo, and make income minus outgo equal exactly zero. And then you got to go live it. And that's why we provided tons of free tools at iwasbrokenowimnot.com. You can find next steps that are money-saving ideas and income-producing ideas, because we want to help you be able to win in a financial emergency so that you can move as this financial emergency wanes, as it surely will. You'll be able to move towards living a more fully funded life.
There we go. You guys should be able to hear me again. And yeah, I thought that was pretty powerful. That was straight and to the point for a crisis budget, right? That we got to figure out how much money we have going out, how much money we have coming in, the known amount of money, and then we can calculate the gap and figure out what we do. And that's great information. So the next step, once we have that figured out, here's some tips about it. Like, take this one day at a time. Don't get overwhelmed trying to solve everything at one time. If you need to, take a break, come back to it, and provide clarity. Take a minute to prioritize paying the bills till you reach exactly zero. And then the part that was left off of this video that's really, really important is that once you reach your zero level and have paid all the people you possibly can, then we need to communicate with those creditors that are below the line for what we could pay. And here's what I know. I've been talking with a bunch of banks and creditors and people that are general business people, and all of them are going to be going through some of the same struggles that other people are that can't pay their bills. And a lot of them are going to have plans in place to help people that are in the same situation. So it's important to communicate with those people. They'll work with you on a large extent to help you figure it out. It doesn't mean the debt's going to go away in a lot of cases, but it means if you can communicate and have a plan, things will be a lot better when we start coming out of it. One of the questions I was asked was just, what is important for having a sample crisis budget? I mean, where do you draw the line? Where do you start, and which ones are the most important, right? And so I made a kind of a short list here. And number one is keeping your family safe and healthy and happy, right? That's the top priority for everybody. And on there, I put food. Food would be number one, right? And then housing, there's been a lot of legislations that come out of both the state and the federal level when it comes to evictions, if you have rent, or even not being able to pay your mortgage. And all of that law and body of law is essentially saying one thing: if you can't pay your rent or mortgage, they're not going to kick you out. They're not going to kick you out during this period. They're going to have some grace period. You're still going to owe for what your mortgage was. You're still going to owe for your back rent, but they're not going to kick you out on the street. So you won't have to worry about losing your place just because you lost your job. Utilities fall along the same line, that nobody's going to cut off the gas. Nobody's going to cut off the power if you can't forget those. You can't pay those. Credit cards, a lot of credit cards are going to start opening up plans to help you deal with if you can't have income, and putting them on budget pays, maybe paying as much as you possibly can. They will have some organized plan if you call into them and communicate with them. And then there's a whole host of other ones that I put on here that are important, that you should be able to pay if you possibly can, kind of in order that I would think are important. So here's the steps to kind of, what do you do with this information? What are some things? I got this budget. I know how much I got coming in. I know how much I got going out, but maybe I can tweak it to do some better. Maybe if you think of it like a trauma surgery, right, where you start just plugging holes and gaps. Here's some things that I thought of while looking over this material that may be helpful. You might find some traction in there to possibly do better. So first, I put review the budget for discretionary spending that can be cut, right? A lot of us have health club memberships that we can't currently use right now. Maybe we have subscriptions, and maybe this looks like, I don't know if your household is like mine, but I have Netflix, we have Amazon Prime, we have Hulu, or well, no, we don't have Hulu, we have Stars, And then we also have Disney Plus, right? Maybe we don't need all four, but maybe we do. And then deferred maintenance. Joe Singal always talks about maybe postponing an oil change. You're still going to have to do an oil change. You'll still need to do it sometime in the future, but maybe we just don't do it this month. Maybe look for opportunities like that. And then the next area I'd look is we've separated out discretionary spending from essential spending. Well, maybe we can even lower our essential spending. Maybe we're not eating out. Maybe we turn off the lights a little more. Maybe we lower our heat from 74 to 62 to reduce gas. Another thing is we're probably not driving around as much since we don't have any place we can go. Maybe we can take a little bit out of our gas budget that we normally allocate for. Reduce payments to minimum payment. Here's another good step. Some of us may have been working, Dave Ramsey steps or Joe Singal's ladder, and maybe you're paying extra on your debt snowball trying to get things accelerated so you can get them paid off quicker. Maybe we look at during this time throttling back some of that. Maybe just making the minimum payment on the credit card so we have more cash to do stuff with. Maybe just making the minimum payment on the mortgage. Those sorts of options. One other option that's pretty popular, maybe we move from a high interest credit card now to a zero interest credit card balance. Maybe this provides us some traction over the next 3 to 6 months where since we're not paying interest, we have a little bit of extra cash that will help keep money from going onto the credit cards. And then here's some other ones. Maybe temporarily pause contributions to retirement account, or maybe just lower it to the match. A lot of your paycheck, depending on how you set up, may be currently flowing out towards these sorts of retirement accounts, and maybe you could throttle them back a little bit so that you don't have as much outflow and give you more cash at this time where you may need it most. Same thing with college funds. Like if you're funding kids' college accounts, maybe we throttle back on doing those. I know we all want our kids to go to college. We all want them to succeed, but maybe if I had to choose between funding my retirement account or funding my college account right now, and I couldn't do both, I'd probably cut the college account. It's the same thing with HSAs. The HSAs are really nice to have, and especially when you get sick, but maybe we could look at trimming that out for a little bit. One thing that's possible too, now that a lot of credit cards, I don't know if you're like me, maybe you end up with 20 different auto drafts on there in a month, and it's been a while since you went through and reviewed them, and that was part of the discretionary spending or maybe even the essential spending. But if you're in like true crisis and you need to cut outflow quick, maybe you cancel that credit card and ask them to send you a new one. That'll kill all the auto pays that are on there, and then maybe you just put back on the ones that are necessary or essential. And I promised there would be some opportunities I would talk about out there, right, for people, because this is both about people in crisis and maybe just looking to do better. One of the opportunities out there is that interest rates are at all-time lows. And maybe if you needed short-term liquidity and you own a house, maybe getting access to your home equity would be a more cost-effective way than maybe cashing in your Roth or taking on a loan on your 401k. Maybe it's a better option. Also, maybe take a look at refinancing current debt. Home loans would be a perfect time to take a look at refinancing those. Car payments and even student loans. I had a super great story emailed in to me from a lady who went through one of the first I Was Broke, Now I'm Not classes at ACF. And she called me and she said, hey, basically, I want to celebrate a success with you. I'm like, yeah, really? What happened? And so her story was that she had done these steps. She has an emergency buffer. She's at a place where she's in a job where her job isn't going to get cut. And now they're not charging interest on student loans. And she goes, I called into my student loan provider. And you know what they said? They said, if I keep paying my loan during this period, they'll put all the money towards principal that I send in. And that's going to get me to my goal of buying a house that I thought was a year and a half out. I'll probably be able to do it running the numbers in December. And I was super excited for her to see a traction like that and just how happy she was to finally get out from that student loan and really see the daylight at the end of the tunnel. So there are opportunities out here with this low interest rate environment that you may be able to take advantage and maybe even move your debt snowball cycle forward even faster. This next opportunity, I say it with a little apprehension to be careful, but securities are on sale. When I say securities, I'm talking about investments. And I'm not going to get into which types and stocks, bonds, which ones to buy into. But with the reduction in price of equities and the price for the earnings for being able to buy some really good companies that are out there, you might want to take about maybe putting some more money in your employer's retirement plan, maybe finally starting that Roth that you've been talking about doing, or something along those lines, right? Now would be a great time to start a plan, or even excel on the one you currently have. So back to a little bit of crisis management, right? What about if we need to generate cash flow? Like, how are we going to get that coming into us? Maybe we got laid off, maybe we're unemployed. Maybe we just need more income than our regular job can provide right now. And I said, this is kind of an order that I put together. I said, if health allows, maybe look for areas that are hiring. Like we were talking about, some businesses are actually just thriving during this time period and have more business they can handle. Some of those areas, this is not an exclusive list, but online work, grocery stores, transportation jobs, food delivery services, and those sorts of things are all looking to hire people and can't hire enough people quick enough. And like I said, I'd probably only do that if my health would allow, but if it did, probably not a bad idea. Don't forget to add the federal stimulus that's coming into your budget as well, right? There's $1,200 for individuals, $2,400 for married couples who file a joint tax return, and then $500 for each dependent child under the age of 17. Make sure you put that in your income. That is a known income. I don't know exactly when it's going to come. The White House is infamously famous for doing things on time, so I don't know whether it goes in April, May, or June budget, but at some point that'll be in there. And then I know some of you have lost your job, and I know that's new to a lot of people. They don't know what they're doing. They've never had to file for unemployment before in their life. So I put a link up here about how to file for unemployment. If you need to, you go to My Alaska. It's on the state webpage, and it'll walk you through how to do it. General payments range between $200 to $500 a week, depending on how much you made before. And they are talking about a federal stimulus plan to be able to add additional money that's not going to cost the state on top of that $200 to $500. There was talk as much as $600. I don't know that that's been signed or a said done deal yet, but there is some talk about it. Some other ideas to generate cash flow during this time. Sell something you may not need anymore. I know lucky Americans, first world problems, we generally have stuff around our house, and people generally want to buy our stuff. So if we have something we don't need, we could probably sell something to generate a little extra cash. I like during this time, maybe tapping into your home equity loan if you have some short-term cash flow issues. I'm not a huge favor and fan of taking loans from your retirement plans. I just don't like selling securities when they're not at all-time highs, and that's what it does, is basically selling at a low point, and that can be not advantageous to our long-term plans. So if we can avoid that, I'd like to make the recommendation to try and avoid it if possible. I know for some of you that may not be possible, but if you can, that would be great. Some things that came out of the CARES Act that are important when it comes to retirement accounts, they up the amount that you can withdraw from your retirement plans. And they're allowing up to $100,000 to be withdrawn from your retirement plans early and avoid the 10% early withdrawal penalty. Retirement plan loan amounts are also increased to $100,000 as well. They are going to waive RMDs this year. If you're guessing what the heck is an RMD, that's a required minimum distribution. They change the law all the time. It was 70.5. It's now moving to 72. But essentially, it's this: if you get old enough, they require you to take money out of your retirement accounts every year, and it's a fixed percentage based on your age and how long they think you're going to live. Well, this year they're going to allow you to not take that RMD out. You're still going to be responsible for it. You just don't have to do it in 2020. You may have to do it in 2021 or 2022, but you will still have to pull that money out. You will still have to follow the timeline. It just may not be this year. Also, you can fund IRAs, both Roths, traditionals, for 2019, all the way until July 15th of 2020. So when they pushed the date for filing your taxes, they were also kind enough to allow an extra window to be able to set aside more money. One of the questions I got that I was asked to answer tonight is, my retirement account has just lost a ton of value. What should I do? And this question's a little difficult to answer just because I don't know where everybody's at. But generally speaking, retirement accounts, when you set them up, we're not day trading in there, right? They are long-term accounts that should have a long-term investment principle associated with it. And this current coronavirus, this episode that's going on in our economy is very short term. I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know whether it's going to be 6 months, a year, 3 months, next week. Nobody knows. But I do know this. I know that if you're not retiring in the next couple of years, that you have little to worry about and that fluctuations like this are actually healthy. And if you're able to still put money in your account right now, it's actually really going to help your account and it will grow in value. If you're retiring in the next year or two, there is some concern about what to do it, and you need to be a little bit more careful. I would be careful about rebalancing right now, and I would probably seek professional advice about how to handle it and what to do, because that couple year window right around retirement is pretty delicate, and you should have some extra help around it. And I was going to open it up for questions. If you'd be so kind to put your questions in your chat box here, I will answer them as I can. Give me 1 second. I'm looking at some messages here to get caught up with what's going on. So the question is it beneficial to do a Roth conversion at this time because the market's at all-time lows? That question on its face is simple to answer. That, yeah, well, if you're going to convert your Roth from traditional to a Roth IRA, then of course, when you have less taxable liability, that would be the perfect time to do it. The more complicated part of that answer is you have to know how much traditional money you're going to have. And so when it comes to retirement planning, what you want to do is, let's say you're at a 25% tax bracket now, joint filing, married. When you step off into retirement, you don't want to have a big spike one way or the other, where you're paying a ton of less taxes now or a ton of more taxes when you go to retire. So you need to have some traditional retirement money in the mix, and how much to convert over to a Roth is a little bit of a balance about how much you're going to have, what tax bracket you're in now to be able to do the proper planning that's the most beneficial. Hopefully that answers your question there, Joe. And then how do you best validate those home equity loans? That's a good question. If I was going to go out and get a home equity loan right now, what I would do is I would go talk to 3 or 4 lenders, and I would look at specifically things that I would look at. I would look at rate, I would look at closing costs, and I would look at how much the overall package is going to cost me altogether. And I would compare several plans side by side. And then once I weeded through which one I thought was going to cost me the least amount of money to loan money on, then I would choose that one. But some things to look for: closing costs, the operational costs inside of it would be what I would look for when it came to a home equity loan. How far out should we try to? One of the other questions that just came in here in the chat box, and you guys can probably see it better than I can. How long should I budget for this low income period? That's a question that I have a hard time answering because there's just not enough information out there, right? The one thing I would say to do is I would definitely look at how stable your jobs are, because that's going to affect the overall picture. Some people are maybe teachers or government workers, or they're essential, and they're going to get paid for a long time, right? If we're not in that category and we're going to maybe have some flows that ebb and flow in this time period, I would budget longer. I would say I would start with a month and then I would look at 2 months, and I'd look at 3 months, and I'd look at 4 months forecasting. I don't know that I would go much further than that right now. And I would do longer term with the more volatile my income was, just because you may need to see a bigger picture to withstand a drought longer if your income becomes a lot less. Hang on, I'm catching up. Can everybody still hear me? I'm sorry, I missed your question, Brian. Could you retype it in the chat box so that I can answer it for you? Okay, got it. Thoughts on how to leverage this moment to get traction in your investments? I think that question, I have to extrapolate a little bit to kind of read into what I think is going on there. I think you're talking about maybe tactical rebalancing, and tactical rebalancing during this period, I don't really want to get into on this call. I think if you're looking at doing tactical rebalancing or trading, that you maybe should, it's not really, we're going to be able to cover that subject in this conversation. But I will say that there are opportunities out there. There are investments that you should be making to be able to cover better time for your future or help multiply in the future. The more money you can set aside, the better you're going to be. But when we're talking about retirements and short, that gets into trading. Trading is a much more complicated issue. It's more complicated than a financial workshop. The main message should be during this is that if we're talking about retirement accounts and we're talking about long-term investing, we're talking about long-term strategies, and we're talking about basically a reality check of whether you would be comfortable with large swings in your investments. And if the answer to that is yes, like I am incredibly comfortable with watching my balance bounce up and down, then maybe you should have a very aggressive posture, a very high equity stock posture on your investments for the long term. If you're not uncomfortable with that and that thought makes you very squeezy, then you shouldn't have a very aggressive stock portfolio. Maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 70-30. And here's why, because what happens is when people are nervous, they tend to, as Dave Ramsey would put it, overcorrect. It's like driving your car. Maybe I'm driving down the highway and everything's going good, and I go to make a turn to my right, and then there's somebody in my blind spot, and I don't see him till the last minute, right? And so when I don't see him, I overcorrect, and I whip out of that lane back into my lane. Well, most accidents happen when people overcorrect, and we can see examples of overcorrection going on in this economy right now. And I think toilet paper would be an excellent example. I don't know, hoarding bottles of water would probably be an excellent example of overcorrecting. So when people get fearful, they tend to make decisions that can hurt the long-term growth and long-term planning that should be happening in there. And tactical reallocation at this point, if you got an aggressive posture, stay with an aggressive posture. If you got I'm okay with some risk posture, 60-40, 70-30, just ride it out, stick with it. You will be fine in the long run. Hope that answered your question, Brian. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. So I would like to talk about a few opportunities that are out there. And some of those opportunities that are coming up, we are going to do another I Was Broke, Now I'm Not class at ACF. And it's going to be remote. And we're going to do it through Zoom. I mean, get fired up. Who is not excited to do that again? So in the link there, it probably won't copy, but maybe Stuart can post the link in the chat box. acf.ak.org/money is how you find where to get to the I Was Broke, Now I'm Not class. And that's going to kick off on April 15th. That's a Wednesday night at 7:30, and then it's going to go for the next 6 weeks at 7:30 p.m. And then Joe Sangl has brought out a COVID resource page. It's new to his website. If you have not been there today, you have not seen it. It literally went live today. There's 4 videos that are discussing the same topic in even greater detail to help you out. He has budget materials on there. He has the CARES Act on there so you can read through it a little more thoroughly. So that is an excellent opportunity for you to be able to get more resources as well. And then Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you have Googled Dave Ramsey YouTube recent videos, but if you haven't, he has a ton of material he's pumping out right now during this COVID time to help people with their finances. And it's great material. I love listening to Dave. He is an exciting, charismatic speaker, and he breaks things down very simply in that country boy sort of logic that'll help just about anybody figure out their problem and work through it. I see a question coming in from Marie. I'm going to take a second to read it. The question is how long do I think this protracted recession will be? And do I think it'll be something like the 80s or the Great Depression? You know, I think there's not enough information out there. I don't feel like there is, but here's my worry and concern. The longer we shut down the U.S. economy, I think it's like a diesel engine, to put it in some Dave Ramsey kind of country boy speak. If you just shut off a diesel engine, they're pretty easy to fire right back up and keep running. And as we throttle back this economy and it starts to bring the RPMs down and maybe even hits a shutoff point, and then if it sits for a while and then maybe gets cold soaked on top of it, then it's a lot harder to get fired up and started back up. I'm not terribly concerned that we're going to have a huge recession. I mean, even some of the biggest recessions we've ever had, if you take 2007 through 2009, you know, it was 18 months. You go back to the Great Depression to 2000, or, you know, 1926, 27, 28, another almost 18 months. Do I think it's going to be on that level? I don't feel like it is. I think our economy is one of the strongest, most robust economies the world has ever seen. And I think the sooner we can get a handle on this coronavirus, whether it's testing or viruses or, you know, just even medical supplies so that we can deal with the onslaught of sick people, the quicker we'll get back up and running, the quicker we'll all get back to work. So I got a Yvette, for anybody needing like urgent help, you can always message Stu on his email, and he can forward you to get help right away or immediately, and we can get you in touch with one of our financial coaches here at ACF. There's a whole host of them. It's not just me. There's a whole crew of people that are here to support and love on you. I see Andy's on here tonight. He's going to run the I Was Broke, Now I'm Not course. And there is also, like, Jonathan Coberly is on here. I don't see him on here tonight, but he does a lot of mentoring work and helping people. We have people and resources that'll get you the help you need. So all you got to do, get a hold of Stu, send him an email, let him know that you need extra help, and we'll be sure to love on you and get you the help you need. There you go. There's Stu's email just popped up there for you. All right, guys, I just wanted to thank everybody for being on here tonight. I appreciate you. I love all of you. We're going to get through this together. And if you have questions, reach out. We'll be glad to help. Take advantage of that I Was Broke, Now I'm Not financial class. It's going to be amazing. It'll do life-changing work. All right, guys, have a great night, and thank you for joining us.